Hey you, I'm Ali Amo, and this is the A Lease on Life podcast. Today I have with me Eleni. Eleni is the founder of HypnoFit, the world's first global hypnotherapy clinic, which had 22 clinics around the globe. But since her spiritual awakening in 2021, she has completely changed how she did life. And now she goes with the flow in total surrender. I'm not going to lie, I'm very excited about this. How are you, Eleni?
I am so good. Thank you for having me.
It's hard not to be good when you're going with the flow, living in surrender. But I've got to ask, what did you find the most challenging thing about that process?
Yeah, it is very, very challenging and very, very difficult actually, because we are so programmed and conditioned to want to control everything and to have a belief in lack and fear. And so when we go with the flow, we have to let go of all of that. And we don't realize how much we're hanging on to it until we start letting it go. So the most challenging thing is trust. And that doesn't mean trust in 1 week everything will be better, or in 1 week something will appear, or in 1 day or 2 days. It means trust over a long period of time that everything is working exactly as it needs to. Everything is showing up exactly what it needs to show up, and letting go of that fear that you need to know what's going to happen next.
I think that was exactly the message I needed to hear because this is something that I'm struggling with at the moment, even though all of the signs, all the synchronicities, all the messages, all the alignment, everything that's coming through is like reassuring me. I'm so used to seeing what's ahead. And
Hmm.
instead of getting all of that, all I see is like, Frogger, where you're like across the river and there's like logs and things. But I see
Yes.
myself on one side and then there's nothing but white stones all as far as the eye can see in every direction. And it's like I can take whatever path I want. And I've never had that before. So this is blowing my mind to hear that because it's exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you. Thank
Perfect.
Do you still find it pops up for you every now and then?
Of course, but less and less, less and less. It's quite a process and quite a journey to let go.
Mm.
And I'm not going to sit here and say, and I've let go of everything, and now I just go with the flow and everything is perfect, because that's not the reality. The reality is that you do occasionally get doubts, but the difference is that you see them and you don't see them as part of you. You don't see them as that's who you are. You don't take that on as, yes, this is the situation I am. You just see it as, oh, there's the ego getting worried again. It's okay, ego. I've got you. So I really see it as outside of myself, as a program that's running less and less powerfully than it used to. But of course, it still runs.
Have you ever read the book, Seth Speaks, The Eternal Validity of the Soul?
No, I haven't read that particular one. No.
There's a quote in it. This is a channeled book from back in the 60s and
Mm.
70s. So I think it was the first one of its kind as well. And there's a quote in there from the entity that refers to itself as Seth, more so for our sake than anything. The ego was meant to be an aid, but has been allowed to become a tyrant.
Correct. Correct. And when I had my spiritual awakening, I saw that tyrant. And it really shocked me, because I didn't think that it existed within me. When we talk of ego, my term of reference was, okay, Donald Trump's got a massive ego. But when I had my spiritual awakening and saw my ego, it was like, what? 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 I just thought that I was confident. I didn't think that it was this massive ego that's running the show. And when we say ego, people have this perception that it's just about arrogance. It's not. Ego is something that we all have. It's our identity, it's our personality, it's the way that we live life for the most part. Now, that doesn't mean that um, it's not necessary, or that, it doesn't aid us or it doesn't assist us. But what you said in terms of that quote, it's where it runs the show. That's the issue. So it's fine to have the ego there to observe it, because it wants to keep you safe. Its intentions are good. but we don't need to live life with the ego in the driver's seat because that's not the most expansive part for our soul.
Well said. I'm curious about your spiritual awakening. Did something trigger that to happen, or something brought that on, or what
Yeah.
happened prior to?
So when I say spiritual awakening, it's not like I wasn't awakened to co-creation with the universe because a lot of things had happened, previously you introduced me as creating the world's first global hypnotherapy clinic, and that didn't happen just with me navigating the 3D world. That happened with total co-creation with the universe, with synchronicities, with miracles, with a lot of things that I absolutely understood that I had a spirit team, with spirit guides supporting me. I understood messages. So it's not like I didn't believe any of that or didn't know any of that. I knew I had angels. I knew I had a spirit team. I knew that I was part of something bigger than what I'm understanding. I understood that we create our own reality. So all of that happened over a series of years, well before what I call my spiritual awakening. But my spiritual awakening happened when I underwent my first plant medicine ceremony, and I did go to the other side and I did cross the veil, and I saw things from a completely different perspective, and that's where I understood the illusion of what we're actually living in, and understood that the way that I was living was just basically an actor in my own life. And so it just took a whole new level and a whole new understanding of, wow, so this is what it's all about. And so as a result of that, my whole life changed. I made many, many changes in my life that completely turned it around.
So once you come out of the ceremony, you couldn't see things the way you did before. It
No,
changed you forever, and you
forever.
acted accordingly. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I'm a big integrator and action taker. So in fact, the shaman who ran my ceremony, he's run hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and he has said that he doesn't know anyone who integrated as well as I did. So what that means is actually do something with the newfound knowledge that you have, as opposed to, oh, that's interesting, and then continue to live the life the way you always lived it, which is the easier path. But yeah, I when I had this information in front of me in terms of, wow, this is what it's all about, I changed everything, everything, even my name.
You're reminding me of meditation. You can have these profound moments and these massive epiphanies in the moment. Once you come out of it, it's like the world goes back to the way it was. You go back to the way you were and you forget. The craziest thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What do you do with that? What do you do with this insight that you've just had?
I think when that happens, the shifts occur within you. But the idea is, I believe, to do more so what you've done with integrating that new knowledge and shifting your perspective forever. What
Yeah.
what was the major lesson that you took from your experience that would
I've
apply
writ-
to anyone and everyone?
okay. So I've written a book on this, which I haven't yet published, but there were
Okay.
eight major lessons. So which one do I choose? I guess the main one, which underpins everything. Now, this is a really difficult concept for people to grasp. So you just need to let go of your logical brain, listeners, and just sit back and maybe close your eyes as I speak, because your logical brain will go, what? What? That doesn't make sense, because it doesn't make sense. Okay. It doesn't make any
Okay.
logical sense. So the number one is that this is an illusion. And I've heard that many times before my awakening, but I never understood it. Like I didn't get it. I didn't understand what that meant. What does that mean? This is just an illusion. And by illusion, I don't mean that the actual experiences that you're experiencing are not real. Of course they are. So, when you make love with your partner, you're making love with your partner. When you're experiencing an experience, you're experiencing an experience. Everything is actually happening. So I just want to make that clear. But when you're watching a movie, those scenes are by and large actually happening too. So we're just a character in this movie. You're a character expressing yourself as Ali in this lifetime. I'm a character expressing myself as Eleni in this lifetime. This is just like this fun thing that we decided to do today is just have this scene for whatever reason. We just decided to do this scene. But we take everything so seriously in that, oh my God, this is what's actually happening. It's a scene. It's a scene in a movie. And at the end of the movie, there will end up being another movie. So it doesn't even matter if you don't do everything you wanted to do and achieve everything you wanted to achieve because there's many, many movies, many, many lifetimes. We're here to help our soul expand and evolve into its most expansive path. But we need to have fun along the way. We need to experience joy along the way. I used to always say, work hard, play harder. And that's true. I used to play really, really, really hard, but my work was really, really hard. So I don't believe in that anymore. I believe that
Mm.
everything can be joyful, that it doesn't have to be hard. That's just a paradigm. It's just a social construct. But because we take our life so seriously that it has to be this way. So when I had my spiritual awakening, I basically saw it all unveil. I saw behind the scenes as to what the soul contracts were behind the scenes, how it all played out, how it was all just one big stage, and that we can focus on what really matters or we can focus on the things that don't matter. It's up to us.
I've got quite a few things popping up, things different people have said. Have you seen when Jim Carrey talks about the character of Jim Carrey, him playing that role, all of that sort of thing?
I've seen little snippets of him. Yeah, little snippets.
He's had similar awakenings and has let go of quite a few elements of the ego, and the way he explains it very much aligns with what you're saying as well. Interesting that you mention about the soul contract as well. I find this is something people on that more spiritual path who've explored elements of spirituality are right on board with, but it's this concept in the mind, not understanding what that actual experience is and how it works. When you saw that side of reality, what were you actually seeing or witnessing or experiencing through the ceremony?
Yeah. So what I was witnessing was that how I had chosen my parents to begin with for very specific reasons. They both gave me traits that I now have, which would help me on my journey. So this was a big deal for me because I've always been closer to my dad than my mum. Because my dad was
Same.
that big affectionate, kissy, kissy, huggy, huggy, and me being the youngest child, I got a lot of affection. I got a lot of love, and therefore I am that person. I am that person that gives a lot of love because I've received a lot of love. Whereas my mother was never that person. But what I saw during the ceremony is the other qualities that I got from her, which are really important. And that's all about like, what can you do to help everybody else? That she's very giving, very loving in that sense. Like she won't hug you, but she'll mend your clothes and cook you dinner, even if she doesn't know you. So that kind of love that she shows the world is different to my dad's, but very important all the same. The qualities of forgiveness, the qualities of humility. She's a very, very humble person. And so what I saw was I chose them so that I could serve this purpose and do this journey with best equipped in the best equipped way. So I had this newfound love for my mother after the ceremony that I wasn't able to connect to before the ceremony. I loved her, of course I did, but there was always a feeling of me not being good enough because mum is like this, you know, Christian martyr. And how could you ever match up to that? So it was difficult growing up with that kind of character as a mother, but the ceremony helped me understand why. I chose her as a mother, and everything sort of shifted after that. And the same with significant others that I chose to be my partners, and how they were so, which I knew this anyway, this part of it, that they were so perfect for the time that I was doing life. I've been married twice and about to be married a third time.
Oh,
And
congrats.
thank you, thank you. And yeah, like I don't see those relationships as failures at all. I see them as perfect. They were absolutely perfect. They were exactly what they needed to be for that part of the journey. And they were long-term relationships, the first one being 10 years, the second one being 22 years. So long-term, respectful, conscious relationships. The other things that I saw in the ceremony were how much I really appreciated the people that were in my life, even more, like the team at my clinic, my hypnotherapy clinic, how much I valued them and loved them, and so on. There was one instance of a friend that I had just recently not fallen out, but stopped seeing her, and I got her perspective on it in that ceremony. So
Oh, wow.
I completely saw her side of the story, and I just had this over, because I thought I was the, even though we didn't have a physical falling out or anything like that, we'd stopped talking to each other just naturally,
Mm.
and I felt quite hurt. And I saw her side where she was very hurt, and so seeing the balance, seeing the other sides, knowing that there's always another perspective, and really you're only looking at a very tiny part of everything that is.
I found really interesting just the contrast, even just how the way you've expressed the difference in your parents. I see within those two characters in your life that the contrast actually presents a nice balance.
Mm, absolutely.
And the idea of shifting your perspective through an experience. I believe, was it ayahuasca that you had?
Um, no, the first one, I have had ayahuasca, but the first one is called Silawaska, which is actually a blend of Syrian rue and psilocybin. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And yeah, that's what that was for the very first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I only asked because I have somebody coming on a podcast with me soon who has these ceremonies. That's her business, doing this trauma work through this way. So I always assume it's ayahuasca. So I like hearing the new stuff. I'll have to ask about that. But the experience that you described of seeing through another perspective, the only other time I've heard of something like that happening is through death.
Mm. Near-death
Mm,
experiences. Well, there was no doubt about it for me that I had crossed the veil.
mm.
I had no doubt in my mind that I had crossed the veil, because, well, it wasn't in my mind, it was in my soul knew. Because immediately when you cross the veil, you have this overwhelming feeling of love that just vibrates through your body that you have never experienced before. And this is a mother speaking who's given birth. So that it's unimaginable, the feeling of love that you're vibrating at when you cross the
Mm.
veil, because there is so much unconditional love. You're just surrounded by unconditional love.
I remember being in my 20s when I was first told the information, like, you pick your parents, and I found it extraordinarily confronting at the time, and I rejected the idea. And it wasn't until a little bit later I sat back and reflected on that. And I thought, if I'd picked my parents, wouldn't I have picked the most nurturing, the most supportive, that, like, And then I thought about it and I'm like, well, if I did have all of the things, the qualities that I thought would be the best for me, given how I grew up and what I did and all of that sort of stuff, would I have done those things?
Mhm.
And once you actually shift your perspective from looking at it as why would I to looking at it as why would I? Like, why would I do that? And then all of a sudden I realized because do you remember in your podcast how I was saying when I was young, my thing was lining up my teddy bears at the end of my bed and giving presentations and speeches, right? It's recently come to my attention, and I mean in the last week, that yes, that was what I did for fun as a child. And that experience led to me doing public speaking in school. And it's something that is not a fear for me, which is a massive fear for people. But that playtime that I had when everyone went to bed at night was born from trauma because I was unheard. And
Mhm.
so when I was discussing this with a girlfriend of mine, I think she thought that I would take that as a negative sort of experience, whereas I thought I would argue that the two childhood traumas that I had that year were part of the soul contract so that I would be unheard, so that I would want to be heard and practice being heard and be prepared to be heard because what I've created in this lifetime is something that needs to be heard. So it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? It's like, what comes first, the trauma or the growth? Like, you know what I mean? You need to have the negative experience for the positive experience to come. And that goes with our parents as well. If you were nurtured and supported and loved and appreciated and just propelled forward in life to try everything, would you? You know what I mean? You might end up
Exactly.
becoming the people pleaser for them or doing things that you think that they want to do instead of doing what you want to do for you, or just becoming the natural overachiever that you become as a result of these things. So when you look at your parents, the idea is you can try and ascertain what those lessons, what those qualities, what those experiences served, how they served you, as opposed to this happened to me or this happened for me. It's a bit of both. It happened to you so that it could happen for you.
Absolutely. And you were part of that. You actually, as a soul, you decided the experiences that you were going to experience. But I also want to put in a little disclaimer here because I know that there are many people who would be listening who are like, no, I did not choose sexual abuse.
Mm,
And if that's where you're at, like, that's okay because, yes, it's incredibly what you experienced was incredibly traumatic. And I don't know, I've had thousands of clients who have experienced sexual abuse, but I didn't personally. All I can say is that you must be a very courageous soul to have had that experience and to then rise above it and take your lessons and be the person that you were destined to be. But if we keep remembering that this is just a movie and that whatever our soul needs to learn, we'll learn no matter what it takes. So our purpose is derived from our challenges, like you said, the challenges that you had, Ali, our challenges and our strengths. So that's what makes us a candidate for serving our purpose. We had to have had those challenges in order to utilize our lessons along with our strengths to do what we need to do. So I first had depression 30 years ago, and it's that experience that really helped me first of all, get into hypnotherapy, become a hypnotherapist, and then grow the business that I did and serve the way that I did. Like, I don't know that I would have been able to serve the way that I did had I not actually had firsthand lived in experience of depression and chronic anxiety. So, even though at the time it was the worst thing ever,
mm.
where I felt I was misunderstood, no one understands me, like all these rules, all these judgments, blah, blah, blah. But in actual fact, it was the greatest gift for me to then do what I needed to do as a leader in the hypnotherapy field because I had lived in experience of the trauma that I was helping other people overcome.
So it's you need the negative to turn it into the positive, and there's no guarantee that the positive would have existed without the negative. You need that balance of the yin and the yang. It helps you grow, as
Totally,
hard as
but
it is. Mm,
totally. But even the concept that it's a negative and a positive is a construct
the
that us
binary
humans
put
have
on it. Yep.
created. Like,
Mm,
really, when you look at a movie, is that a negative scene and that's a positive scene? It's just a scene. And that's the
mm,
way that it's seen, from the quantum perspective. it is not negative, it's not positive, it just is.
Is.
It's just
Mm,
our human way of explaining and our human way of interpreting it that it is negative because we feel that, oh, if we feel this emotion, it must be bad. But in fact, the way that our soul sees it is, oh, how interesting to feel that emotion of depression. What does that feel like? Oh, how interesting to feel anger because those emotions are not experienced at higher levels of consciousness. And so it's
mm,
like you're going on a playground and you're going on a scary ride. You're going to be scared on that ride, but you want to experience it. And so that's
mm.
what life is like as well, is our soul just wants to experience everything. And so it doesn't see it as negative. It just sees it as an experience.
Do you do you think looking at it like the holographic universe, that whole idea that everything around us is a hologram, and it's this idea essentially that we're the character in the video game, and that character in the
Mhm,
video game is seeing, experiencing everything is real. It has to stop at the wall,
mhm.
all of that sort of thing. If you apply that to us here in 3D reality, it helps you understand the illusion that the 3D world is for us characters to have a game for ourselves.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And so with the
Mm,
awakening, one of the biggest things is realizing you are not that character.
mm,
You're not that character. And so if you're not that character, how else can we play this game?
mm. Did you get a glimpse into what you are when you're not the character?
Yeah, like it's just love. It's just non-judgmental, unconditional. And this term unconditional love is just like overused because
Yeah.
the fact is that most people only give out conditional love and they call it unconditional until it doesn't suit them or until that person does something they don't like. So therefore, it's never been love. So that in my mind, unconditional love is the only love. Non-judgmental love is the only love. Otherwise, it's not love. It's
Mm.
like when you see a couple break up and then they've got nothing but, negative things to say about the other person. Did you ever love them? I don't believe so. Just because that person then did something to hurt you, make you angry, went outside, your agreement, you suddenly don't love them. That's not love. Love is you love regardless. Love regardless. Now that doesn't mean for those people thinking you necessarily stay in the relationship or you necessarily have to have those people in your life. All I'm saying is that wasn't love.
Do you remember is it Tyler Perry talked about having people in your life through seasons? They're not meant to be there forever.
Seasons, what was it? There's 4 of them, I think. Seasons, reasons, a lifetime, and there was a 4th one. I forgot the 4th one. Friends,
Like the
yeah.
okay. Well, even just in different times of your life, the person that you were and the people that surrounded you were in ways a reflection of that, but also, how you also attract people that have qualities that you aspire to, who you wanna grow to be, who you aspire to be. And so throughout those different phases of your life, the people that came in and out were there for a reason. So
Yeah.
even if things have changed and you've fallen out or whatever, the idea is you need to be grateful, and instead of looking at somebody, because that's what people tend to do. I've done it. It was actually when my marriage ended that I realized that that was a cycle that I had when relationships ended, and I would focus on the things that person needed to do to change their lives and the shortcomings and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, hang on a minute, I have a unique opportunity here to reflect on myself through this long-term relationship, marriage situation, and work out who I am and how the who I am is represented, how it manifests in daily life, and the things about myself that need to be worked on so that I can grow. So it took about 3 months and it wasn't easy, but it was the most rewarding experience of my life. That's when I realized a lot of what I needed to shed because I wasn't being who I truly am at the core. You're being what society expects or doing what society expects. And that's when I made it my mission to follow my purpose and realizing that I always knew teaching for me was a stepping stone. I knew it going into it, but sometimes you get lost in that. You get
Mm,
lost on the steps and you just keep going, and it's like, "No, no, no, you need to keep climbing." So, I was so grateful for the marriage because had I not had that, I wouldn't have known what I don't want, and I wouldn't have tried on societal expectations to see it didn't fit.
exactly. And congratulations for it only taking 3 months to work that out.
It was an ugly 3 months, but yeah.
Usually takes a bit longer than that, so well done.
Well, thanks. It's a constant unveiling, I suppose you could say, because I've learnt just as much, if not more, about myself in the relationships I've had since the marriage. There's different layers to you, and certain things from new people trigger things to come out in different ways as well. So
Totally.
you can think you've broken cycles a million times, but it's not until the thread of your web is being flicked and or the buttons being pushed and the bug starts wiggling, you're like, "Oh, it's still there. I've still got
Yeah.
work to do." Mm.
Oh my god, there are infinite layers. You know, I spent the last few years really focusing and observing myself, observing the ego at play, observing, connecting to soul. You know, I had the ability to do that. Most people get distracted because they've got so much to do, you know, throughout their days. But I focused all my attention on that. And yet, it's not like I've arrived at the end. It's this constant unveiling of another, you know, skin that we're shedding, another skin that we're shedding, because underneath that belief, there's another belief. Underneath that belief, there's another belief. It's just never ending. It's just that
Mm.
as we go through the journey, what appears in front of us is a lot less and there's more space in between. It's almost like this obstacle course that at the beginning, like the obstacles are everywhere and they're really big. And as we go on this evolutionary journey of the soul, the obstacles are still there, but they're not as many and they're not as big, but they're still there.
Do you look at your obstacles a little bit differently now, knowing they're an illusion, or do you look for the lessons in
Totally,
them or yep.
totally.
Mm.
Like as an example, I'll give you something that is happening right now. We were just told 2 days ago that because we live right on the beach, which is just magnificent, lived here for 2.5 years. And our landlord decided that she wants her beautiful apartment back. And so in the past, that would have been, "Oh my god, we've got 8 weeks, now what?" But the way Christian
Mm.
and I look at that, both of us instantly from the first minute, it was like, "Oh, how exciting. I wonder where the universe is gonna send us now." Like, we actually don't know. So, there's no fear. We just know we're gonna be taken care of. We know, you know, when we arrived here 2.5 years ago, there were these reports that massive crisis, people couldn't find rental properties, they were living in motels, but it was like, you don't I just don't buy into any fear story. That's not my
Yeah.
reality.
Mm.
And so, yeah, 100%, everything that arises, the way that I see it is, okay,
Set a
why is this
serve.
why
Mm.
is this arising? There's a reason this is arising.
Mm. I'm
There's
actually
always a
excited
reason.
about your next chapter. I feel like yeah, beyond pleasantly surprised what's gonna happen. I don't know. There's a weird feeling. Mm.
Yeah, I feel that too. I feel it in my body. I feel like
Mm.
there's going to be a quantum leap, and I'm excited as well. Really excited without being attached. Really excited.
To the outcome. Yep, that's important. And having a partner who's on the same wavelength as you, sees it the way you
Mm,
do, massive, massive change to your life when that's the case.
totally. At the same time, he's different to me, and that's what makes it wonderful. He's more grounded.
Mm.
So so I can tend to be like quantum out there, you know, with the way that I see everything, and then Christian very much lives on the earth, and he's very grounded, and it's a beautiful thing to have this dance between us, where, like you said before, yin and the yang, which is that, you know, if he was exactly like me, there wouldn't be much growth, but he does challenge me, and, yeah, I feel very grateful.
I've got one last question that I'm dying to ask you.
Sure.
What is it that do you say something to yourself when you find yourself feeling the need to control or not surrendering to what must be? Is this something you tell yourself or something that you do to remind yourself to just let go?
Yeah, I do, which is everything is perfect. Trust, be patient. Everything is perfect. What I believe is that, our ego wants us to be playing the big game. People like you and me, we know we're here for a purpose. And our ego wants us to be right in there, gladiators, playing the big game, right? But the
Yeah.
fact is, if we have had enough training, we would be in there. So I believe that we're going to enter the stadium the moment we're ready for it and not a second before.
Mm,
Because we think
perfect.
we're ready, but we don't know. We really don't know. We don't know what's actually being played out here. We only see this tiny
Mm,
perspective and we think we know everything.
you're right. You're so right. Oh, I think you left it in a perfect place, I've got to be honest. Is there anything else you feel like you need to say before we wrap up?
I just like to say that, yeah, you definitely talented, Ali, with having a beautiful conversation
Oh,
that
thank
brings
you.
out some really interesting topics. And I wish this podcast all the success because I love the way that you handled this whole time and space that we've had together.
Okay. Thank you. I realize what you're sharing can be really personal. And because of that, some people are more unlikely to be vulnerable. But how you expressed things, and what I loved is that I could see you going back. You know what I mean? You actually went, hang on a minute, what was that like? What did I see? What did I feel? And just shared
Mm.
as best as you could. We couldn't be there, but we did as close as we could to actually being there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Do you do readings like what's your jam sort of thing?
Now I have decided that what I want to do is go back to online one-on-one soul alignment sessions. What I love to do more than anything is to really assist people to what is it that they need to let go of so that they can step into their most expansive self. Because I believe that we are here to learn to be soul, not ego.
Mm.
And that's not dissing the ego at all. And just we just need to remove the ego from the driver's seat and live as
It's like
soul. And
tap into the spiritual more so than the physical, or look for the spiritual within the physical more so to get to be connected to the soul more so.
yeah,
Mm.
because that's where the magic, that's where the quantum leaps, that's where peace arrives at.
What's involved in a soul alignment session,
Alignment
or
session.
how do you roll? What happens for you?
Yeah, so it's very intuitive,
Mhm.
and I'll do some prayers and so on before and prepare the space. And when I get with a person, um, we're really going to narrow in on, no more like healing and healing and healing and healing and healing. Like, you know, for fuck's sake, it's time to rise up into the truth of who we are. And so we're going to get very specific in what is standing in the way and how do we step into our truest nature, which is soul. And so that's what we're going to be doing in the session.
So, thanks for being here with us for this ep. New ones will come out to you every other Thursday. Feel free to check out Eleni's podcast. It's called Galactic Guidance. I'll give you the links in the show notes, and she's also got her own YouTube channel. If you'd like to have a soul alignment session with her link will also be in the description in the show notes. Well, you take it easy, beautiful people. You'll hear from me soon.